back to where we left off. That was really awkward. Hey friends, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Taylor.steele, but my friends call me T-Steele, and I'm just super excited to be back with you guys. It has been a while since I've seen everyone. Last time I think I had long hair and it was all brown. Now it's dyed a little bit, so that's fun. And now I'm 19. I turned 19 last week, so that's fun. And the point of this channel is really just for me to hang out with you, just do life with you. And I think this is a really unique and cool way to do that. And just for me to share my heart and to share what I'm learning and what God is teaching me through whatever season I'm in. And I want to pick it back up again. The last 8 months have been absolutely insane for all of us, I know, and this is just what it's about. We all have a story from quarantine. We all have a story from COVID, whether it affect us directly or our family directly or not. We all have some sort of story, so I'm really excited to share that with you today. And so, like I said, since I just want this to be like I'm doing life with you, like we're going to get coffee, and I just want to tell you about what's been happening. I don't have everything planned out for that reason, because when you go out and hang out with your friends, you don't have word for word what you're going to say. So if I ramble a little bit, my apologies, I'm sorry. But I also just want to hear how COVID affected you and your family and what you're working through down in the comments, or you can DM me on Instagram at Taylor.steele_. I just love stories, and I love talking with people, and I love getting to know people and knowing, why you're where you're at. Because everyone is somewhere for a reason, right? Everyone's story has brought them to where they are now. And it is just so cool to me to see everyone's different stories and how everyone's different stories cross paths, right? And maybe that's the reason why I love books so much. As you can see, I changed up my background a little bit. So we have all these wonderful books now, so we might have to do some videos on books, which I'm excited about. So anyway, let's jump right in. Like I said, this is how COVID affected me. And so, honestly, thank God it did not affect my family or me directly, in that I did not get sick and my family did not get sick. And so just keep praying for protection over that, because obviously the global pandemic is not over. Even though we're over it, it's not over. And we still have to be vigilant and smart and protect ourselves as we go through life. And yeah, so let's jump in. So I'm just going to start back in November, because you'll see why, and it all makes sense of how we get to here. So starting in November, a few weeks before Thanksgiving break, I was just praying, and I just felt really comfortable with everything I was doing. I absolutely loved my job. I loved what I was getting to do at my church. I got to lead, and it was just such a blast, and everything I was doing, I just loved. I felt super comfortable. And when you're comfortable, you can't grow. And so I was like, God, just take me out of my comfort zone. I'm ready to grow, whatever it is, let's go. I said, anything to do with Claim Your Campus, I will do. If you don't know about them, I can make a whole entire video about them. They're absolutely incredible. Their goal as a ministry is to see student-led prayer on every high school and middle school across the nation. And I have been involved with them since I was 14 years old. And I've done little things with them here and there. And so I said, God, if I could work with them, that'd be great. Keep in mind, I had registered for my classes for the spring. Spring is the right, yes, starting in January. So I just finished my first semester of college, ready to start my second. I was excited. Like I said, I loved everything I was doing. And I get a call beginning of a Thanksgiving break from someone who worked with Claim Your Campus, and she was like, hey girl, what's up? Thinking about you. We have an opportunity, and I would love for you to move to Kansas from January to July of 2020. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'd have to drop my classes. I already registered. That's kind of crazy. I was 18 at the time. That's a lot. And she was like, all right, pray about it. Let me know by the end of the week. The end of the week? So I was just sitting there being like, oh my goodness, my dad's not going to let me go, even if I wanted to go. I'm living with them. I had already done a semester. You can't just do a semester of college and then take a semester off. That's not how life works, right? Well, that was going to kind of be my cop-out, So I was talking with God, and I was like, all right, God, at the end of the week, I'm going to pray about it and think about it throughout the week, and whatever my dad says the wisest decision is at the end of the week, that's what I'll do, knowing that he's going to tell me to stay in Georgia, so I could be like, oh, so sorry, really feel like I'm supposed to do this next season in Georgia. For being honest here, yeah, know how that goes. And so end of the week came, and I had talked with my dad at the beginning of the week, and he was kind of like, yeah, I think you should stay in Georgia. And I was like, okay, no, like, not the deal I made with God. Like, we have to stick with that. So came back at the end of the week. My dad looked at me and goes, Taylor, are you more passionate about Claim Your Campus, or are you more passionate about finishing school on time or early? And I was like, well, I'm a lot more passionate about Claim Your Campus. And he said, well, I think you should do that. And my mind was just blown, because that was such a God thing. If you know anything about my story at all, such a God thing that my dad would look at me and tell me that and support me 100% in me doing ministry, right? Okay, I ran out of storage, so back to where we left off. You're probably wondering, what in the world are you doing in Kansas? Isn't Kansas just fields? Well, that's what I thought too. But my job title was the Vision and Relational Strategist for Claim Your Campus 2020. So Claim Your Campus 2020 was an event that was going to happen July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2020. And we were going to have 100,000 students in a field, and the whole thing was prayer, care, share, equipping students to pray for their schools, share the gospel, and care for their campus. And I had gotten to be on the executive board my senior year of high school for this event. I was the only student on this board, and so I was really intimidated then, and so it was just a really cool thing that I got to come back and be on staff and help run this event, right? So I was totally stoked, and I remember I was at Passion the first few days of January. If you don't know what Passion is, it's a great conference in Atlanta, but it's canceled this year because, you know, we're in a global pandemic, so that's sad. But if you ever get the chance to go to Passion conference, highly recommend. It's absolutely incredible. So January, I was at Passion with 67,000 other young people, which is crazy. So I did that, absolutely amazing. Then I came back home. The next day I packed, and then I left for Kansas. 13 hours, you know, my dad drove out with me, shout out to my dad, and it was just a really fun drive out there. I was really expectant of what God was going to do, and I got there, and my expectations were flipped upside down and thrown out the window, to say the least. Everything that I thought it was going to be, it wasn't. And everything I didn't think it was going to be, it was. And the things that I thought were going to be the hardest were the easiest, and the things I thought were going to be the easiest were the hardest. I remember being there and coming back home to my host home Sundays and just crying and being like, there's no freaking way on earth I can do this for another 6 months. But then I remember, as time went on, coming back in tears and just being like, God is so good, and I am so excited to see what the future holds. And if I'm straight up with you guys, those first few weeks were really, really tough. I didn't know anyone. I was by myself in the basement. I had Miss Linda upstairs. She was great, but I really didn't know anyone. I didn't have relationships with anyone. When things would happen, I called people back home, right? And that was really hard. I felt really, really alone. And in those times, God just taught me that just because I feel alone doesn't mean I am alone, which really plays into quarantine. So I'm so thankful God taught me that before we jumped into the season we're in now. And I remember moving out there, and I had called one of my mentors, we were talking, and he was like, Taylor, what if the goal of you being in Kansas wasn't to fill a field full of students, but what if your goal was to have greater intimacy with God? What if that was God's plan? Maybe your plan is to fill a field, but maybe God's plan is to have greater intimacy with you. And I was like, that sounds cool. I wrote it in my top of my notebook. Not gonna lie, I was like, cool. But then the other side of me is like, no, Taylor, you're literally getting paid to make sure these kids are in a field on the 4th of July, right? And so fast forward to March 17th. I got a phone call from like my boss's boss during my lunch break, and I was like, hello? And he was like, hey, just to let you know, we're putting a pause on mobilization, which is the little group that I work with. And I just kind of sat there, my heart dropped. I was like, oh no, just as I was starting to make friends, like what's happening? You know, this is when COVID started becoming a thing, and everyone was like, oh man, like this might last another month or two. This is like kind of a big deal. And so he was like, all right, you can move to Michigan, which is where the headquarters of Claim Your Campus is, and you can work from there for a month or two until everything chills out and you can come back to Kansas, because you know, COVID won't last that long, right? Anyway, or he said you can go back home and take temporary layoff and then come back to Kansas in a month or two. So I decided, well, I already committed to this, so here we go. So I packed the next day, and then I moved to Michigan. And I expected to be there for maybe like a month or two and then go back to Kansas. I was there for a week because Michigan shut down, and then where I live shut down, and they said, all right, Taylor, you have to go back home. And I was like, okay. So threw everything in my car and then drove back home. And thank God they let me work from home. And so I was doing, but everything I was doing got changed because I was relational and vision strategist. My job was to meet with people in Kansas to make connections, and I couldn't meet with people. You know, everywhere was closed. And I couldn't leave the house, right? So I remember just sitting in this moment and being like, I do not see how I'm supposed to do my job if I can't do my job. But let me tell you, I absolutely loved what my job turned into. I got to work with students directly. I got to go on Instagram Lives every day and hear what God is doing in the lives of students across the nation. I got to hear story after story after story of God's kindness, of God's goodness, of God's faithfulness, and how he's bringing us through this, and how he's teaching us things that we wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise, and how revival is happening. It just looks different than what we thought, because when we think about revival, we think of a big group of people meeting in one place, all together, united, and that is a revival, right? But we can't do that now. And so what do we do when we had this event in planning and prayer for 10 years, you guys? 10 years this event has been prayed for and planned. I can't imagine praying and planning for this for 10 years and then have COVID hit. 2020 had more Christian events than any other year. I mean, what in the world? How I just sit here and I'm like, God, what the heck were you thinking? Because this isn't a surprise to God, right? COVID was not a surprise to God. COVID was a surprise to us. God knew. God knew. And he still led tons of people to schedule Christian events in the year 2020. Why? I don't know. I have so many questions. If you know, let me know. If you because I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure it out. So much of the time I'm like, God, could you just give me a bird's eye view of what you're doing? I just want to know. And that might not be the best for me, but I'm a control freak and I want to know, and I want to understand why. I want to know. I just don't get it. So anyway, instead of having 100,000 people from across the nation come together in a field, we decided that we were going to have on July 4th students and leaders go to schools to pray. Literally go to a school, watch a live stream, and pray for change. And that's exactly what we got to do. I got the opportunity to go to a local school near me and with some of my girls that I lead at my church. And so it was such an incredible opportunity to stand there with them and watch them lead each other in prayer, and to watch them come into the throne room of God and present the request to him for their school. Because here's the thing, I can go and pray for high schools and middle schools all day long. Do I think God will hear me? Of course, totally. But I think students have an authority in prayer over their schools that I just don't. I'm not a high schooler anymore. Even though I may look like one, I am not one. So I tell my girls all the time who I lead, I'm like, you guys have an authority over your school that I don't. So it is so important for you to go pray on your school campus, right? It is so important. So with all that said, the event happened, and absolutely incredible. God met us in so many ways, and our whole thing at the beginning was a moment to mobilize a movement. And if one moment can mobilize a movement, what can thousands of moments do? I don't know, but I'm excited to see, and I'm excited to learn. And throughout quarantine, God has just showed me time and time and time again that just because I feel alone doesn't mean I am alone. I learned that in Kansas when I felt like I had no one. I learned that sitting in my room when I couldn't even go out to coffee with anyone, and coming back home to a totally different world was hard. And I know so many other college students and people did that too, and coming back to something that should be familiar wasn't. And that was extremely, extremely difficult, but I had so much time to read books. I had so much time to lean into God. I had so much time to press into who God is and what He wants for me. And so that's really my story with COVID. What's yours? And I just want to say my heart goes out to everyone who has lost family members, friends during this time, anyone who has been directly affected, long-term, loss of a job. I know how it is to have a parent out of a job for a year, or for 6 months, or for 8 months, or however long it's been. It's hard. No, I think of you and pray for your families often. And like I said before, if there's any way that COVID has affected you that I can be praying for you for, let me know. If you don't want to put it down below in the comments, like I said, you can message me on Instagram, and I would just love to walk with you in that, because like I said, just because you feel alone doesn't mean you are alone. And our generation is lonely. We are the loneliest generation, which absolutely breaks my heart. We're so connected through social media, but so many of us feel so alone. And I want you to know right here, right now, you're not alone. You have so many people for you. You have so many people who are cheering you on. You are seen and you are loved. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Share this video with your friends. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you soon. Let me know if there's anything that you want to know that I shared. If they're like, Taylor, what the heck? That made no sense. If you want more, have questions, for real, let me know. I'm excited to do life with you. That's the whole point. All right, bye guys.